Let us pray. Our Divine Father, as we conclude for this week our work in this assembly, we renew our thanks and ask that we may continue our work under your guidance. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
I'm begged leave to introduce Bill number 23, the Tobacco Tax Amendment Act 1989. This act, Mr. Speaker, introduces and reflects the changes outlined in the budget which we presented and completed in this legislative assembly.
The Honourable Provincial Treasurer has moved first reading of Bill 23, Tobacco Tax Amendment Act 1989. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 23, Tobacco Tax Amendment Act 1989, introduced by the Honourable Mr. Johnston, is now read a first time.
To the member for Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce Bill number 251, the Whistleblowers Protection Act. The purpose of the bill is to protect persons who report pollution violations from coercion, intimidation by their employers. It also protects persons who complain to the Ombudsman or who contact members of the Legislative Assembly.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Jasper Place has moved first reading of Bill 251, the Whistleblowers Protection Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 251, Whistleblowers Protection Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. McInnes, is now read a first time. Tabling return.
And member for Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill, being Bill number 218, an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act. This bill would require landlords to give valid reasons when providing tenants with notices to vacate. The bill, Mr. Speaker, would also discourage the abuse of security deposits and give tenants greater assurance that they would not arbitrarily lose their security deposits. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Mountain View has moved first reading of Bill 218, an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. So ordered.
Bill number 218, an act to amend the Landlord and Tenant Act, introduced by the Honourable Member, Mr. Hawksworth, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Provincial Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, today I wish permission of the Legislative Assembly to table some information statutorily and otherwise. First of all, the pension plan annual reports for the year ended March 31st, 88. I'm also tabling, Mr. Speaker, the reports to the Legislative Assembly of payments made to members of the Assembly and also payments with respect to Legislative Assembly personnel serving on boards and commissions. And while I'm at it, Mr. Speaker, I will table the annual report of the Alberta Resources Railway for the year ended December 31st, 1988.
To the Minister of Advanced Education.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to file with the Assembly copies of the responses to questions which I took as notice during the June 12th review of the estimates of the Department of Advanced Education.
Bill.
Introduction of special guests. Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Mr. Speaker, to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, by the time the Premier was sworn into office on November the 1st, 1985, many people in government knew there were serious problems with the principal group's investment contract companies. Mr. Speaker, the regulators had known for 12 years, the Treasurer and the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs knew, and the Premier himself was advised within 2 weeks of being sworn in. Mr. Speaker, shortly after taking office, the Premier started preparations for a cabinet shuffle that would be announced in February 1986. A shuffle whereby the Consumer and Corporate Affairs Minister was removed from her post and the Minister of Advanced Education was promoted to the position of Provincial Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Premier. Is it not true that when the Premier called the member for Three Hills into his office to tell her that she was leaving her portfolio, that the member did indeed remind him that the principal affair had hit a critical juncture and that she wanted to stay on in Consumer and Corporate Affairs to see the problem resolved?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is referring in some part accurately to history, in other parts as straight speculation and innuendo on his part, and not at all a matter of fact. And Mr. Speaker, obviously discussions between the Premier and Cabinet Ministers are private discussions, but certainly the general tenor of his question is absolutely wrong.
Mr. Speaker, all we're trying to do is get the truth in. Tell us the truth, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're here for. Mr. Speaker, is it not true also that the Premier was looking for his briefing Bible prepared by his staff? When the Minister mentioned that, he didn't find the memo in there, Mr. Speaker, and because he could find no reference to the problems at FIC, AIC in his briefing Bible, the Premier told the member from Three Hills there was nothing to worry about and that any problem would be taken care of.
Again, Mr. Speaker, it's some kind of speculation on the member's part, and all of this has been dealt with previously in the House in my response to the Code report and by Mr. Code exhaustively, Mr. Speaker.
Send us another brown envelope, John. That's how we know.
Mr. Speaker, we have been waiting for answers from this Premier about what happened, Mr. Speaker, and it's clear that he knew. It's clear that the whole government knew, and I want to ask him again. Instead of hiding behind the Code report and the member from Three Hills, when is he going to accept his responsibility? Tell us what happened, Mr. Speaker, so that we can make our own judgment on it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I recognize the frustration of the honourable members when the government was faced with a problem, largely not of its own making, but nevertheless dealt with it through the Code report, had an exhaustive inquiry, and then made the tough decisions that were necessary to be made, and that the people of Alberta have accepted those decisions as reasonable and fair. Now, I understand the honourable members are frustrated that the government's been able to deal with this matter in a reasonable and fair basis that the people of Alberta understand and support. But surely, Mr. Speaker, having made a full response to the House, the honourable member is completely off base now to try and change or accuse the government, change the answer which the government gave, or try and accuse the government of hiding something. There's never been a more exhaustive and complete inquiry into a matter, and we still have the Ombudsman's report to come.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
The only one that believes that is the Premier himself, Mr. Speaker. It's not the people of Alberta, that's for sure. But I'd like to designate my question to the member from Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Provincial Treasurer would like us to believe that big corporations are paying their fair share of taxes in Alberta. Nothing could be further from the truth, Mr. Speaker. In fact, in 1986, this government paid out more in tax credits and other expenditures to corporations than it collected in corporate income taxes. This is the unfair tax legacy of this government. Mr. Speaker, in 1988-89, the province of Ontario collected $470 per capita in corporate income taxes, over twice as much as the $225 per capita Alberta collected. Mr. Speaker, as well, British Columbia collects more per capita than Alberta does. Given these facts, Mr. Speaker, how could the Provincial Treasurer make the clearly indefensible statement in his recent budget speech that Alberta ranks first in per capita revenue from corporate income taxes?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's fascinating. The people of Alberta really like it when the member of Mountain View starts spouting off these statistics because, quite frankly, nobody understands them. And that's the fortunate message. What they do understand is this, Mr. Speaker, that Alberta has the lowest tax regime in any province in Canada with no sales tax. And that's a very easy message to communicate, Mr. Speaker. And we know how important it is to maintain good relationships in this province to ensure that new investment takes place here. And that's why you see the lowest taxes paid by Albertans and the taxes paid by the corporations in this province will increase and grow as diversification takes place. All Albertans love this province, Mr. Speaker. They're very confident of the future. They want this future to grow and be strong, Mr. Speaker. That's why we maintain the tax regime. Now, the member from Mountain View, as curious as it may be, does not understand the analysis that is even being presented by the boy with the cue cards in the members gallery back here. They're not even given the right information, Mr. Speaker. We know, and all Albertans know, that we have something called the Alberta Royalty Tax Credit System. Now, the Alberta Royalty Tax Credit System, Mr. Speaker, is about $300 million or so, and we deliver that through the corporate tax system, Mr. Speaker. And so when the member talks about the deductions and all the transfers made to corporations, well, of course we use the corporate tax system to transfer royalty tax credits to those people in the oil and gas sector, those small companies that are taking initiatives, those companies are spending money for the service sector, those companies are generating jobs. We use the tax system for that, Mr. Speaker. We use the tax system because it's an easy way to flow it through. Now, that doesn't mean that the corporate tax system is perverse. In fact, it's extremely fair. And the kinds of misleading statements from the opposition across the way, because they have no knowledge of the private sector, no knowledge of what it means to take incentive, and certainly have never been in a corporate firm in their life, have to retract those statements.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans understand deficit Dick has gotten us $10 billion in debt. They certainly understand that.
Such a manager. What a pro.
Mr. Speaker, given that all other provinces except Alberta have a general capital tax on large financial institutions such as banks and trust companies, how can the provincial treasurer justify not requiring big, mainly central Canadian financial institutions to shoulder their fair share of the tax burden in Alberta?
Oh, Mr. Speaker, now it comes out. Isn't that great? Now we see the shape of the socialist policies across the way. They want to confiscate the opportunity of investment in this province. Moreover, you can see how they're driven by central Canadian policies, Mr. Speaker. We have a different look at things here in Alberta. We want to encourage private sector investment to come to this province. We like the notion of people taking risk, generating profits, reinvesting those profits, generating jobs, Mr. Speaker. Now what's happening here? It's happening in this great province of ours, and these people don't like to see the success. It's Friday morning in Alberta, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We still have one more supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we know how well their strategy for helping the financial sector in this province has worked. Mr. Speaker, given that the BC government, with a tax base comparable to Alberta's, has collected over $250 million with its capital tax in the last 4 years, given the $10 billion that this provincial treasurer has given the people of Alberta in debt, when is this treasurer planning to wake up, smell the coffee, and ensure that large corporations, especially big banks, contribute their fair share to Alberta's bottom line in paying fair taxes?
Right on.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've seen what's happening. Alberta in 1988 had the largest real economic growth of any province in Canada. We look forward to a very abundant growth in 1989. I like the member when he mentions tasting the coffee in the morning, Mr. Speaker, because I have said time and time again in this House that there's a superb sunrise in this province right now, and it's happening in this province. New investment, retail sales per capita the highest, the lowest tax regime of any province, and more people at work than ever before in Alberta's history, right here, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the socialists don't understand it. It's no secret, Mr. Speaker, it's no secret.
Give the private sector an opportunity, maintain individual rights, give them a chance to have a great opportunity to have meaningful jobs, to reinvest their dollars, and it happens. And it's happening now, Mr. Speaker, and they can't find a way to prevent it, Mr. Speaker, despite their negatives, despite the blue position they take, despite their socialist leanings. They can't stop it. It's happening.
Member for Edmonton-Glengarry. Edmonton-Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, recently under the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, the Federal Act, a member of the opposition was able to determine that transfer payments to Alberta will be some $204 million less over 4 years than our own government expected, creating an annual average shortfall of revenues of $51 million per year. This figure is considerably greater in terms of shortfall than the Minister expected. Mr. Speaker, also, Alberta revenues are very much dependent upon the value of the Canadian dollar. We sell heavily into U.S. markets, and we've seen an increase in the rise of the Canadian dollar. My question to the provincial treasurer is this. Given that we as a resource exporting province sell heavily into that United States market, what was the value of the Canadian dollar that the minister used in computing his estimates, his budget?
I'm sure glad he came to the question, Mr. Speaker, because for a while I was going to start talking about established program financing and then about monetary policy, and now he's coming back to the budget discussion. Seems to me we've had a full opportunity to discuss the budget here. All that information has been presented. But simply to allow the member, because somebody must have done a lot of research in that question, the amount that we used for our own purposes was 81 cents, Mr. Speaker, through the period April 1st, 1989 to March 31st, 1990. I couldn't go on to say that if the central government used a calmer monetary policy and started to allow the rates to drop down as they have in the United States, you would even see a stronger growth rate in this province with new investment flowing in here, Mr. Speaker. We expect that it would happen, and therefore you'll see the dollar moderate in our view through the balance of this year, probably moving very close to our predictions sometime in early 1990.
Mr. Speaker, given that the feds have changed their position on UIC, crop insurance, transfer payments affecting advanced education and health, would the minister advise the Assembly what changes need to be made to the estimates insofar as revenues are concerned for the recent budget?
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, if he is coming back to establish program financing, then I have to make it very clear that his introductory comment is wrong. It's wrong. There will be no reduction in the amount of established program financing. It will not be reduced on what we're getting today in the future going out. What has been adjusted, however, by the federal government has been the way in which the inflation rate factors into established program financing. Now, in the first year, I said before, through 1990, the cost of that will not be too many millions of dollars, probably of the order of $20 million, and it'll start to move as you move out over the period, obviously. Well, Mr. Speaker, the member can't have it both ways. On one hand, I heard him saying at one point, in a rather curious speech he made about his sense of the need for fiscal responsibility, and then on the other hand criticize both governments because they have taken tough decisions. For us in Alberta, the impact in the first couple of years will not be significant, Mr. Speaker, and we can absorb it because our economy is growing. Diversification is taking place. Corporate taxes are increasing. Personal people are working. Personal taxes are increasing. Guess what else, Mr. Speaker? The price of oil is, in fact, on average above our forecast.
Mr. Speaker, inasmuch as the change in the value of the Canadian dollar is about 4.5 cents greater and impacts negatively on Alberta revenues, what's the change in revenues for the province of Alberta with this increase in the Canadian dollar?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member knows that because the Canadian dollar on a cross-currency basis with the U.S. dollar happens to be 85 or 85 point something this morning, it doesn't mean that's going to be the average price of the Canadian dollar relative to the U.S. dollar. Things change, Mr. Speaker. Now, he may take a photograph of things, but we're a future-looking government. We don't freeze ourselves in time. We continue to pursue the future, move ahead, expand the opportunities for this province. So we think in terms of the interest rates, as I've indicated already, that Mr. Crow will come to his senses.
Well, it's better to have Mr. Wilson down there than some of those socialist liberals running the central monetary policy, I can assure you. He'll come to a sense, let the interest rates drop down, and you'll see monetary expansion take place and interest rates coming down. What does that mean for our province, Mr. Speaker? It means great opportunities for us, and it means a lower Canadian dollar cross-currency basis, which in fact does support our expansion of that market. So in summary, Mr. Speaker, in summary, the member doesn't know what he's talking about with respect to established program financing. He has a very curious view as to what happens in a high interest rate regime. He should be talking about ways to reduce the interest rates, reduce the dollars. And I'm very pleased to announce, Mr. Speaker, that the budgetary plan presented by this government is doing even better than we forecast, Mr. Speaker. Oil is up, jobs are up, investment is up.
Member for Clover Bar. Clover Bar, followed by Edmonton Avonmore, Edmonton Meadowlark. Clover Bar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask about some new investment initiatives in Alberta. Dow Chemical, and to the Minister of Energy, Mr. Speaker. Dow Chemical Canada Incorporated, who is one of our valued corporate citizens in Fort Saskatchewan, and operates in 32 other countries with annual sales of some $17 billion, has recently announced an agreement with Shell Canada Limited for a $120 million fractionation facility in Fort Saskatchewan. That facility is in conjunction with the $800 million Dow expansion at Fort Saskatchewan as well. We in Clover Bar, Mr. Speaker, welcome this economic diversification, this initiative, because it creates jobs in our area. How does this project fit within the government announcement of October 1988, the ethane policy implementation?
Mr. Speaker, let me first say it's just not fair that I have to follow the provincial treasurer, the show that he puts on. And, but anyways, I'll do my best, Mr. Speaker. This, Mr. Speaker, with regard to the member for Clover Bar's question, I should say first that it has been a very good 7 days for the honourable member. I recall, I guess it was last Friday, that my colleague, the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications, announced a $140 million diversification package in Fort Saskatchewan, the West Ames Sherritt Gordon Advanced Industrial Materials. And we now see that Dow Chemical is moving forward with their plans to build a $800 million ethylene and derivatives plant in his area. And we should say that Dow did announce yesterday, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member points out, their intention to acquire ethane feedstock for transportation to Fort Saskatchewan, where they will separate the feedstock into, separate the ethane into a chemical feedstock. With regard to the ethane policy that was announced in October 1988 by my predecessor, Dr. Weber, this allows Dow to take advantage of the opportunities under that ethane policy, and allows them to bring in feedstock, ethane feedstock, from a variety of field sources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, given the initiation of the fractionation project, what is the progress and the status of the proposed major ethylene project that the member has referred to?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is somewhat more in the area of the responsibility of my colleague for Economic Development and Trade, but let me say that he and I have worked closely on this project, on the ethane policy and how it affects the petrochemical complex and the number of diversification initiatives in this province. I would like to point out that with regard to the progress, Mr. Elzinga and I, Minister of Economic Development and Trade, met with the President and Vice President of Dow Canada, and they told us that they were very pleased with the economic environment in this province, the fiscal regime as was outlined by the provincial treasurer, and the high participation rate in the labor force Notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, they did indicate that of the 32 countries that Dow has petrochemical complexes in around the world, they pointed out to us that Alberta has the toughest environmental regulations of any country they do business with in the world. And, Mr. Speaker, should also point out that they find it an attractive business environment in Alberta because of our fiscal regime, but also that we endeavor on a regular basis to clearly communicate our environmental standards and that they are consistent and there is not inconsistency or moving ground with regard to our environment.
Thank you. Thank you. We still have one supplementary. Thank you. All right. Stony Plain hasn't been recognized yet. Edmonton Avonmore, followed by Westlock Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health. I've been receiving calls and letters from adult survivors of child sexual abuse about the lack of services available to them. We know that untreated incestuous assault has serious effects on adult functioning. Female survivors suffer from eating disorders, drug and alcohol addiction, long-term depression, and suicide attempts, while male survivors exhibit excessive aggression and often become sexual abusers themselves. Both male and female survivors have difficulty forming lasting relationships and developing effective parenting skills, which undermines their attempts to create and maintain healthy family life. In view of the serious long-term effects of untreated child sexual abuse, how can the minister justify her inaction on the pressing need of adult survivors?
I'm not sure what the honourable member's evidence is of my severe inaction on the matter, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence is long waiting lists and a lack of resources for adults who have come forward as a result of the increasing emphasis on this. Treatment programs are in fact non-existent in many areas of the province, and I would ask then what resources the minister will commit to aiding survivors in these areas.
Well, Mr. Speaker, now we get to the more clear expression of what the issue is, and that is that the member feels that treatment is non-existent in many areas of the province. In fact, there are treatment programs going on throughout our province, both in a clinical or a medical sense, and therefore through the institutional side, through hospitals. Also, there are community treatment programs.
Mr. Speaker, Mental Health Services refers their survivors to the sexual assault centers where they exist, and the sexual assault centers have waiting lists as long as 3 months to a year. I therefore ask the minister to commit herself to looking into the need of adult survivors, including male survivors, and committing funds to these programs. I would ask her if she will make that commitment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't happen to believe that it is in the best interest of the effective allocation of health resources to disassociate from one another certain afflictions that people have, whether it's by way of child abuse, whether it's by way of alcoholism affecting their family, whether it's by way of the many other ways that adults and children arrive at a point of needing some help for mental difficulties. And the system that we are attempting to build in this province is one that will address the need and provide the resources to families, to individuals, both through the clinical and the institutional setting, as well as the community setting. I fully acknowledge with the honourable member that we could do more in the community setting, and that is something that I will be pushing forward. But to allege in this House that there are no treatment facilities available is simply not the case.
Member for Westlock Sturgeon, followed by Calgary Fish Creek.
Could I Mr. Speaker, could I supplement the Minister's answer in respect to that? The government has long recognized that there are victims of crimes, and that's what the member in the opposition has referred to. And part of the proceeds from the victims' surcharge, which came into effect this year, and when the fund is accumulated, may in fact be used for those matters that she has referred to. However, the programs have not been developed, and we will be in consultation with the Minister of Health in respect to those matters. But it is something that we in the government have recognized that needs addressing.
Westlock Sturgeon.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, thank you to the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, in 1984, the Alberta Zone Environment Council, their #1 recommendation said that an Agricultural Resources Conservation Board be established reporting to the Minister of Agriculture in charge with responsibility on behalf of the Government of Alberta for conservation, maintenance and enhancement of agricultural land base. Then the Alberta Department of Agriculture published figures in 1985, Mr. Speaker, that said that over 10 years that although Alberta's arable land areas remained at about 30% of the province's area, or 160 million acres, we had lost 100,000 acres of prime #1 to 4 prime land in that period, and in effect had replaced it with #5 and 6 prime land, much less productive. Now, given that the replaced land, although admittedly is more productive than it was 20 years ago due to technology, but still much less productive than the #1 to 4, is the minister considering, or will the minister table a bill following the recommendation of the Environment Council, in other words, an Agricultural Resources Conservation Act?
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Associate Minister may wish to supplement my answer, but I would share with the Honourable Member that we just recently announced a significant program jointly with the federal government on soil conservation. So we're certainly addressing it from that area and protecting much of our existing soil. While I would have to recognize that the Honourable Member is making a point when he talks about the loss of good agricultural land to urban sprawl and industrial development, I would reinforce that there is still a significant amount of agricultural land that has not been brought on stream in this province. Granted, not of the same quality, but today's farming technology, certainly a highly productive quality. And I think realistically we have to look at a balancing act between the demands of urban life, the demands of industrial growth, and the demands of the agricultural community. And I believe most of the mechanisms are in place to provide that balancing act.
Speaker, it's shameful that any Minister of Agriculture would say that we have to balance it, let good farmland go under industrial expansion. Well, then would the Minister, if he's not willing to protect #1 to 4 farmland, go as far as to require that the Alberta Petroleum Natural Gas Conservation Board never be allowed to put any of their processing facilities on #1 to 4 land? Pretty good.
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable members and all legislators have to recognize that a balancing act is necessary, and there's a lot of factors that come into play in the siting of a plant. Now, you can make industrial development so expensive that we simply won't have it, and you won't have the good news items like was discussed and shared with the House by the Minister of Energy. On the other hand, I think we have to be concerned about our food-producing land base, and as I've indicated, I think the mechanisms are in place to bring about an adequate balancing act between the various industries over the years.
Mr. Speaker, the supplementals to the Premier, given that this government obviously follows a shameful practice of saying #4 farmland development has to be balanced, would the Premier set an example and withdraw his application to rezone prime farmland for a country residence for himself?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, the government has not any shameful past. As a matter of fact, the government has built the confidence of rural Alberta, strengthened our agriculture industry, and it's probably stronger now than it has been for many, many years. As for the honourable member talking about personal matters regarding home, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He somehow grabs the nearest press report, and strange, Mr. Speaker, you might find now and then that some of them are incorrect. Hard to believe, but they are. And here we have a member of the legislature blindly accept that kind of baloney and then talk about it and show how little he knows about the facts.
That's it. Thank you. Also, Westlock Sturgeon in the... I won't say that. Perhaps you look up Beauchesne 409, subsection 6. You can do the other as well if you wish. Your supplementary was out of order, as well as with my comment. All righty. Calgary Fish Creek, followed by Edmonton Strathcona.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is Friday. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week in Washington, D.C., the Canadian Embassy, for the first time, made its facilities available to the provinces for tourism and convention promotion purposes. And, Mr. Speaker, even more importantly, the embassy invited Alberta to be the first provincial beneficiary of this significant policy initiative. Would the Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs summarize for the Assembly this morning how Alberta capitalized on this unique promotional opportunity?
Thank you. You bet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was the subject of a question in the Assembly before by the member for West Yellowhead, and I appreciate the follow-up of this question now. There was an opportunity for Albertans to display for a very important group of people in Washington what we can offer by way of convention facilities and food processing in the very finest sense of the term. And we were partners in this project with the Calgary Convention Center, Calgary Tourist and Convention Bureau, the Edmonton Convention Center, the Edmonton Convention and Tourism Authority, and Alberta Food Processors. And I might say the attendance was far beyond expectations and almost approached 400 people who were able to make decisions about locating conventions and conferences here in this province. And the Alberta Culinary Arts Foundation provided excellent opportunity of showing to that very important part of the world their skills, and it was very well received.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder, is the Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs aware of what criteria are used by the federal government or by the Canadian Embassy to select Alberta to be the first participant in this type of embassy activity?
Good question. Mr. Speaker, it was done by a dint of a great deal of hard work by our representatives in Washington, Mr. Stuart Freeman and his staff, and the staff of the New York office of our Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs office, the foreign office we have in New York. And furthermore, we had, and I'm pleased to say, the very real cooperation of an Albertan by the name of the Right Honourable Joe Clark, who has a specific interest in making sure that tourism is promoted, and Jasper being part of his constituency, I'm sure it had a great deal to do with the fact that Alberta was the first, as it is in many, many ways in our relationships abroad. Thank you. Final.
Well, final sup then, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs, or possibly the Minister of Tourism, provide the Assembly with any additional potential revenue data associated with the so-called association market in Washington?
Good question. Good question.
The opposition seems to think it's funny to promote Alberta, but that's
That is so typical of the socialist attitude. They just expect to sit here and expect the world to come to them without getting out and sell, because they've never had to sell anything and except themselves, and they haven't been very successful in that.
Agreed. Agreed.
The fact is that there's a potential of hundreds of millions of dollars of convention business which could come to this province of Alberta, and not just Edmonton and Calgary or Jasper or the national parks, but the other communities throughout Alberta as well. And I made certainly perfectly clear to those people when I spoke that Medicine Hat is an opportunity place for them to come as well.
Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back to some real questions. To the Attorney General. Yesterday, the Attorney General told us that he can see no reason for search warrants information being available to anyone except the accused. Everyone else interested, like ordinary citizens, reporters, myself, anybody else, being characterized as snoops.
Shame.
How can the Attorney General be so contemptuous? How can the Attorney General be so contemptuous of the rights of citizens to examine executed search warrants, which in the recent Supreme Court of Canada case of which he is aware was described as an important right to citizens in a free society?
They don't believe it.
That's a real good one. Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member wishes to be referred to as a snoop, fine. That was not directed at the honourable member or any of the members here. I said in my comments that the search warrants are available to the public. I said that we weren't going to set up a Rolex system where anybody can just walk in and easily access them. If they have an action number or if they have the name of a particular person they believe is accused, the file is open to the public as any other court document is.
Let me give you a Ken.
Mr. Speaker, that is simply not so. In order for someone to get access to a search warrant, this is my question.
Bring them to order, Mr. Speaker.
Let's have the supplementary question.
This is my first supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. How can the Attorney General state that the Supreme Court ruling is being complied with when it is necessary, contrary to what he's saying, Mr. Speaker, to know the exact date on which the search warrant was issued, if you are to have a look at it at all, something that's completely impossible normally?
Mr. Speaker, the file of any particular action in the courthouse has an action number. The search warrant, from the time it is issued, is put into that file. If the justice at the time has sealed, then of course you can't look at the search warrant until such time that the justice has opened it. If it has not been sealed, it's part of the document. As soon as the search warrant has been acted upon, it's free to look at in that particular action number file.
Mr. Speaker, how can the Attorney General lead us to suppose anything other than this, that having regard to the practical inability of people to search these questions out and his own refusal to give us any information about what the government is doing vis-a-vis the principal players and the principal group, that in fact the government is doing nothing? This is a question.
Thank you. The question has already been asked, honourable member. Order. It was the final supplementary, and when the member checks the blues to see the question has been asked, Attorney General. Order. Honourable member from Calgary Mountain View, that's enough. If you'd like to check the blues. Thank you, Honourable Leader. Let's do it. Attorney General. Thank you.
Opposition's having a bad session.
Mr. Speaker, I don't feel in any way that this government is not complying fully with the Supreme Court ruling, that those documents are open to the public once they have been acted upon. I discussed yesterday reasons why, until they have been acted on, that they aren't made public, and that is addressed by the Supreme Court as well. In terms of inaction, there's a number of things that are going on, but I also discussed in the House that we aren't about to divulge the actions that the RCMP and or the Crown prosecutors are using. When the issue is brought forward and an action or a charge is laid, they will know. And until that time, we'll leave it to the investigative process to follow that one through. There's a lot being done.
Edmonton Whitemud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the community recreation and cultural grants have been reduced from $12 to $10 per capita during this fiscal period. This is a change, Mr. Speaker, in midstream. It's a change, for example, that impacts on the City of Edmonton, the internal departments, to the tune of $600,000, not counting the impact on the community groups in Edmonton, or of course the impact throughout the entire province. There is deep, deep concern over this matter amongst the municipalities, Mr. Speaker. There's a deep concern over this style of fiscal management and broken promises. To demonstrate the objections, Mr. Speaker, the City of Edmonton, at its meeting this week, passed a resolution asking this government to restore its to $12 on a per capita basis to fulfill its original commitment and to fulfill the commitment that they made to community groups. My question, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Recreation and Parks: is the Minister prepared to restore the budget to fulfill this government's original commitment to the municipalities and its commitments to the community groups throughout Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, I've addressed this question before in the Assembly and have probably received the most amount of mail on this subject from all municipalities across Alberta that I've received since being appointed minister. Unfortunately, during our fiscal plan and decision on our budget, we had to make some tough decisions. We had made priorities in, as I said before, in several areas of health care, education, and in social services. These decisions are always tough, but the effect on the City of Edmonton is no different than the effect on all municipalities throughout the province. It was a $2 per capita flow down to other years. The commitment of $240 million, $240 million that was made under the CRC program stands and will be delivered. $163 million has been delivered to date, and my commitment is to deliver the following monies from that. I cannot, because of the budgeting and fiscal responsibility that I have, change the decision already made.
Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, possibly the Minister can tell me this then. Why did this government, given the fact that they timed an election very inconveniently to the population, and they knew full well prior to that election as to what the budget was going to be, why did this government then hide those reductions that caused this real hardship to the municipalities and those community groups that are now affected?
Mr. Speaker, the budget came down on June the 8th of this year. Unfortunately, as Mr. Wilson found out in Ottawa, you cannot open the window to your budget address before the day that it's supposed to be announced. And I would fully understand that the people of Alberta appreciate that.
Mr. Speaker, my last question is to the Premier. Mr. Premier, is this government simply phasing out the community recreation and cultural program to replace it with the lottery slush fund, or better known as the Community Facilities Enhancement Program, because the latter program provides a better opportunity for Tory MLAs to milk it for their own political purposes.
Mr. Speaker, the cynicism contained in the honourable members.
The venom,
Question is just a shame. Now, I understand the opposition are having a bad session, but surely, surely, Mr. Speaker, they must have a better sense of what's happening in Alberta than that. We have the cultural recreation program with the grants the honourable minister has been talking about. We had the Minister of Public Works already telling the House during this past week the tremendous benefits to communities through the Community Facility Enhancement Program. And taken together, it's one of the greatest commitments to strengthening the community in the history of Alberta. And the people of Alberta support it tremendously. And surely the honourable member, who has some past history of servicing communities, understands that and will eliminate from his thinking the kind of cynicism that was contained in his question.
That's Time for question period has expired. Point of order, Edmonton Highlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are a number of sections in Beauchesne that I could cite, but I will limit myself to sections 409, 410, and 416, and I will cite also the orders of the day, which are subject to practically daily abuse, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, and by those guys right over there. Mr. Speaker, the member for Edmonton Strathcona, who was engaging in a singular interrogatory statement that is a question that falls into that particular grammatical form, was not allowed to complete the question that he was putting, despite the fact that day after day ministerial statements are offered in the form of question period in response to questions from MLAs who attend their weekly caucus meetings, Mr. Speaker, and have the ability to ask questions in there. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would argue that if there is a position on the order paper for ministerial statements, whether or not the government House leader likes it, then that is the forum which should be used for the making of ministerial statements. And in response to the elapsing time of question period, Mr. Speaker, I would argue that it is not the role of anybody in this assembly to cut off a question because of the grammatical form in which it is expressed. I think it is wrong.
That's right. With care. Once and examine the purpose of the chair. Edmonton Strathcona.
Only adding this, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps it was the case that you didn't hear the interrogatory form, and I suppose it was all preamble. It was a single, it was, I believe, and certainly intended to be a single sentence in interrogatory form.
Order, please. The chair would point out that two issues are being raised by the member for Edmonton Highlands. One is with respect to ministerial statements. The chair has absolutely no control over that, having made representations on a number of occasions as well. With respect to the matter of the question, the chair takes it under advisement. We'll look at the blues and report back to the House at the conclusion of this morning. Orders of the day.
Government bills and orders.